NFL free agency frenzy officially continued yesterday. I put in the word official because the league year started on a Wednesday around the National Football League for 2024. When things became official, you saw contract news, official signings, Kirk Cousins meeting with the media at his new home for the Atlanta Falcons, and some more moves made yesterday. This, a salty headline for a man that has reformed himself and has done his time. Tennessee's gamble. Come on, Shamesy guy in Friezo. That's a little bit mean. For the Calvin Ridley news that he is signing in Nashville a 4-year, $92 million deal. They did tell me during the break, DRS, they said Tennessee's gamble because it's a lot to pay a wide receiver when you are a rebuilding team.
Exactly. And if you're Ridley and Hopkins, you're trying to parlay that duo into a couple more wins this season. So it certainly makes sense all the way around on offense there. But having said that,
good.
We knew he was going to get paid here, Ben, right? We saw the salary cap going up $30 million per team, which means you're going to get some contracts that might be some eye scratchers. Ridley's a very good wide receiver, but usually you're going to see this money paid out by a team that's looking to, Jacksonville Jaguars, win their own division, and that keeps them maybe in the same line as the Texans. Or let's just say he goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. You go, ooh, you know what? This could be that missing piece where we know the Kansas City Chiefs can still win Super Bowls without dominant wide receivers, but now watch out, we're going to go over the top. But I have to take a different approach in this instance, and you started the show out, and rightfully so, this way. My first inclination of this move was, the heck are the Titans doing, man? Like, this isn't going to move the needle at all. They're not going to win that division. But there is something to be said about, I'm trying to see what I have at quarterback. Now, granted, if Levis isn't your guy, you still got Ridley for a couple years, and maybe you'll find another quarterback that can go with him. But there's no excuses now for Will Levis. I don't want to hear next year where it's like, hey, Levis is throwing for 178 yards a game. The offense is stuck in mud, because it shouldn't be. Pollard should be a quality running back there. You have 3 wide receivers if you include Treylon Burks, the former number 1 pick of the Tennessee Titans just a few years back, to go with Hopkins and Ridley. No more excuses here. You have solid tight end, a decent offensive line. It's time to see what you have. So I'm starting to come around on this issue, even though technically I still don't love it, but I can see what the Titans, Ben, are trying to do here.
And I guess that's a very fair point. I have more issues with the Tony Pollard move because you let Derrick Henry walk and then you paid a running back knowing that Tyjae Spears, your second-year pro who you drafted early on day 2, was going to be there as well in Nashville. But I do get the investment to figure out if Will Levis is your guy. And although he went in the second round and his draft stock slid like we kind of expected despite what the odds and the smoke had to say, it's still a lot to invest, the second pick of the second round a year ago, on the quarterback spot. You need to figure out what you have. Rand Carthen is the new general manager there for his second year in Nashville. Brian Callahan, former offensive coordinator for Cincinnati, is the new head coach. Offensive-minded, perhaps, in Tennessee to figure out what the Titans have moving forward. 6-1 number for Tennessee to win the AFC South. Longest number, as we shared, 60-1 to win the AFC Championship. Third longest price in the conference. Only the Broncos and the Patriots have a longer shot of winning the AFC Championship. Now, you might be saying, in the AFC South, if Jacksonville, still in Trevor Lawrence's rookie deal, entering year number 4 before they have to pay him, why did they not invest in the wide receiver position and keep Ridley in-house? As Donnie said a couple of days ago here when we were looking at the biggest names still available in NFL free agency, because of how things played out with the Falcons, if they signed Calvin Ridley, more than likely would have to send back a day 2. That would be second round or third round pick. That makes it a little bit steeper when you look at the money that Calvin Ridley was paid. Wide receiver position was front and center yesterday on the official day of the opening of the 2024 NFL league year. Mike Williams, after 7 years with the Chargers organization, cut by the Bolts yesterday, freeing up about $20 million in cap space for LA. But his tenure with the Bolts now comes to a close.
Yeah, and somebody's going to probably get a really good wide receiver, maybe not have to pay a lot of money for it. But also, as we talk about, you got to level up your expectations with Mike Williams, because this is one of those, if your team signs of, ooh, that's an exciting name. We've seen him do some big things in the past. And you go like, well, how many games is he going to play? 10, 11 max at this point. And that's being real in the NFL. As you get aging, you don't usually get healthier as you go on. If you're an injured player most of the time, as it feels like with Mike Williams, you're going to stay injured here. I want to see what his number is, but also what teams he can fit on, because teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars that lost a wide receiver. We know the Patriots are in the market for a wide receiver. Everybody loves wide receivers, and rightfully so. And again, with that salary cap going up, he'll find a home fairly quickly here. But it is interesting to see. You're seeing Harbaugh reshape that roster as opposed to, let me just come in, let's re-sign everybody. The talent is there. They just needed a new coach to get over the top. So they're starting to weed guys in and out, which I don't mind. You're going to have to mold the team as you see fit, and I trust Harbaugh.
The Chargers have the 5th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. That's at the end of next month in April in Detroit. And currently the favorite to go 5th overall, the FanDuel Sportsbook, is the outstanding offensive tackle, Joe Alt, out of Notre Dame. They also have Rashawn Slater, who they drafted early on in the opening half of the opening round a few years ago out of Northwestern. You could bookend your offensive line with two very talented tackles to keep Justin Herbert upright after a year where he was significantly banged up. There is always optimism in Los Angeles because Justin Herbert plays the quarterback position. It was unfounded, though, in the first few years of his NFL career. Anthony Lynn, and of course the past 3 years under Brandon Staley. Plus 370 for the Bolts to win the AFC West. Second best price, but second best by a wide margin. The Chiefs, who have won this division 8 straight seasons, are a minus 250 favorite. Donnie, with Jim Harbaugh in L.A., who I believe, and you just look at the numbers, is a program or organizational builder at every single stop of his football coaching career. What do you think the true outlook and expectation should be for the Chargers in 2024?
Well, usually you're right. You're talking about setting the foundation up here. And everywhere he's gone, he's built his program specifically there, obviously, in the college football. But also, let's remind ourselves, he came into a San Francisco 49ers franchise that was looking for a heartbeat and certainly gave that to him, making multiple runs at the NFC Championship. So the expectations are going to be high right away. But it's interesting to see how this roster is actually going to play out and what's going to take place. The one thing I do expect here, when we looked at the Chargers for the past couple years under different head coaches, it just seemed like they were scatterbrained out there. Right? Not able to win those close games, whether it's missing kicks or just making bad decisions as a coaching staff. That's not going to happen now. It's going to be a very good fundamental team, which is going to be fun to watch. But if we're looking at the division itself, I do think they're better than the Raiders. Even though the Raiders made a couple pieces here, is it going to be Minshew at quarterback? Of course, you're going to trust Herbert a little bit more than that. The Denver Broncos in a complete rebuild here. So it is going to be the Chargers and the Chiefs 1 and 1A in that division. The only problem is it's still Andy Reid. It's the Chiefs. And if Patrick Mahomes is healthy, we know the end story here. But the end game here is not for next year. It's the following year when I get a full year here. Let me mold this roster the way I want it here, and then we'll take off. That's when I think you're going to see some real signs of life for the Chargers here. But they'll have a solid season, no doubt, this year.
Drew Tranquill, who was a big piece for Kansas City's defense at the linebacker spot on way to a Super Bowl run, used to play it on the Chargers, tweeted at Mike Williams yesterday. We've seen a lot of interdivision mixing throughout this NFL free agency period. Mike Williams, if he's even healthy for 12 games with Kansas City, big play target for Patrick Mahomes. I think they make a splash in the wide receiver market as well. Speaking of now former Chargers, Eric Kendricks, the linebacker, was expected to sign in San Francisco. Then last minute, Dallas finally signs their first free agent of this period in the 2024 offseason. Eric Kendricks changes from San Francisco to Dallas. The Cowboys at a piece on their defense. Keeping it in the AFC West, you mentioned the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, I think it's the Chiefs, the Chargers, and then the other two teams in the division at this moment, the Raiders and the Broncos. Las Vegas now has Gardner Minshew. They let go of Jimmy Garoppolo, who, oh, by the way, is suspended for the first few games of the 2024 NFL season, letting go of a few other players yesterday as well. It will be interesting to see what the Raiders truly do. There is buy-in, there is investment, of course, in their new head coach, Antonio Pierce, who won over the locker room. What do the results look like, though, for Las Vegas in 2024?
The result's probably not going to look all that great, but having said that, I like the way they're building this football team, and quite frankly, you signed Gardner Minshew to a pretty decent deal, and if I am a new head coach, I'm not relying on the young guy O'Connell, right? I'm going to move forward and go with Gardner Minshew because I know that's probably going to give me at least 8 wins in my pocket because he'll be a competent passer.
Yep.
And when you're trying to establish that locker room after what we saw last year, just keep the momentum going. We know Gardner Minshew is not going to be your franchise guy, but also keep in mind the following season, we don't know who's going to shake free. Maybe it's going to be a Kirk Cousins that shakes free at that point, or a Kirk Cousins type of player where you can now say, all right, I have the shell of a football team. Now I'm just waiting for my quarterback. And also, if you're taking a look at, I got to beat Justin Herbert down the line. I got to beat Patrick Mahomes down the line. They got some hunters now on that front line, defensive front four, that they can collapse that pocket without blitzing here. I like what the Raiders are doing. I don't know if it's going to equate to a divisional run here, but I think they're taking the next steps here to be a formidable football team over the next couple years.
Big splash with Christian Wilkins, of course, on the opening day of free agency. 4-year, $110 million deal for that big interior defensive lineman who played his first 5 seasons in Miami. You pair that with Max Crosby, a fearsome defensive front for Las Vegas. The Raiders do have the 13th overall pick in the first round. I wonder what they do with it. I'm not sure what is next for Jimmy Garoppolo. He'll sign somewhere, probably the vet minimum.
Niners.
He'll be a backup in a reserve spot. Ooh, back to San Francisco. They do need a backup quarterback, right? Sam Darnold now on his way to Minneapolis. Speaking of a player in the NFC West, Bobby Wagner sticking around, signs a deal in Washington where he reunites with his former defensive coordinator in the Pacific Northwest. That would be the head coach of the Commanders, Dan Quinn. The two teamed up as a part of the Legion of Boom defense to win a Super Bowl back in 2013.
By the way, if we're talking about like getting Band-Aids out on a bad season last year, the Commanders are certainly doing that. I mean, you want to talk about maybe the most active team in free agency? By far, it's been the Commanders. And I got to tell you, I like some of the moves that they're making. It's not moves that they're going to overtake the Dallas Cowboys and or the Philadelphia Eagles.
No.
But it sort of says, you know what? We're going to be a competent franchise this year. Dan Quinn, you trust him as a head coach. He's got some cachet around the league. You know that defense is going to get corrected from whatever that mess of Jack Del Rio / Riverboat Ron Rivera as their head coach. They'll be more competent there. They've signed everybody but a quarterback at this point, so we'll see where they go in the draft. But I like the moves they made as a Band-Aid just to show their fan base. We got new ownership. Come out. We're going to be a respectable team. We're not going to get run over every week, or we're not going to embarrass you. So I like what the Commanders are doing, but it's not going to equate to we're going to push the Eagles and or the Cowboys in the NFC East.
We're talking about these moves here. Did they move the number? Did they make some of these teams that are expected to have win totals around 5.5, 6.5, 7.5 entering next year all that much better? No. But are they nice complementary pieces? For sure. Washington's biggest next move, of course, is its second overall in the 2024 NFL Draft. We shared this yesterday. Caleb Williams remains the heavy odds-on favorite, minus 2,000 to go first overall. A change, though, for the odds-on favorite in minus money to be that second overall selection that Washington currently holds. Jaden Daniels, the Heisman winner out of LSU, now an odds-on favorite, minus 150. It was Drake May around a minus 130, minus 140 price just a week ago. May now the favorite to go third overall. They are going to jostle for those two positions all draft cycle long.